Well, I want to thank you, Mike, for inviting me. I've been here several times, and in the past, we talked about the grasses that are on the market today. What Mike asked me to do is bring you the future. So Zoysia now and beyond is the topic. And we'll start out with the now. How did it get there? Okay. This is the course here. The course here in Hoana is Zeon Zoysia. It was one of the first courses in the area to go to Zoysia. And so I'm going to talk about the products that we have today. Primo Zoysia, which now we've gone back to calling it BRGM85, Trinity, Stadium, and Zeon. Stadium's a new one we'll talk about later, but the Primo, the Trinity, and the Zeon are available today. And they're on numerous courses throughout the area. And from all indications, they've been doing quite well. One of the reasons Zoysia does well here is it came from here. It's a native to Asia. Now, in 1982, Dr. Engelke, who Mike talked about, and another man named Jack Murray came to Asia and collected grasses all over, many different countries, and they brought them back to the States. In the mid-'80s, I learned about the grasses that they had collected. Dr. Engelke's material stayed at Texas A&M University. Our material that we now have came from Jack Murray's program at the at the USDA in Beltsville, Maryland. And Jack, in the early 90s, passed away, and we took his collection from Maryland and from Florida and brought it to Texas. So all these grasses, at some point, came from those collections here in Asia. Now, we've made many crosses in the last 20 or 30 years, and you're going to hear about some of them today. So again, the ones that are available now, Primo, Trinity, and Zeon, are all done through Sports Turf Solutions, which you're going to hear from Brad here in a little while, and they've all been doing quite well. Just to give you a few sites, this is Singapore Island Country Club. It was one of the first courses to use Zeon and Primo on their greens. From what I've been told, they're doing well. We'll talk about Zoysia for greens in a minute and maybe some of the issues that people may be having or not having here in the area. But this is Zeon fairways. The entire golf course is Zeon. The greens are Primo Zoysia. Just another nice picture of what's going on there at Singapore Island Country Club. So we're going to get into stuff that's available today. And that's work that we've been doing on Zoysia for greens. Now, that's fairly new. I know there's several sites here in the area that have Zoysia on their greens from STS, and we're working with some new ones. So what we decided to do, we're a private company. We're not a university. We're private. Probably the only private breeding program in the world on Zoysia grass. So we're the biggest. Maybe the only one, but we're the biggest. Okay. So these are the 4 varieties that we put in a test at University of Tennessee. It's a laser Zoysia, M85, Prism, and Trinity. 2 of the grasses are already here, the Trinity and the M85, and they're being worked on extensively, but there's 2 new ones, laser and Prism. This is some of the work being done at University of Tennessee, just plots. They've had 2 or 3 field days now. A lot of Zoysia greens going in the southeastern part of the U.S., quite a few in Texas, but we'll get into some of that. One of the things that people are worried about is ball speed, and this is some work being done at Tennessee where they mowed the plots at 115. They rolled 5 times a week, and these are the ball speeds that they were getting. And laser Zoysia, the blue, was the fastest almost throughout the whole deal. Primo second, Prism third, Trinity fourth. But they're all different. All 4 of these grasses are different, so you have to treat them differently. In this case, they're treating them all the same, so this is what we're getting out of the test. This one's really interesting because one of the problems we have is people take too much care of these things. In our work at Blade Runner, we want you to do less, not more. And what we've been finding out here, particularly here, is people are treating these Zoysia greens like Bermuda grass greens, and they're overwatering, they're over-fertilizing. They're putting too much chemical down, just too much input. We want you to take those inputs away. And so this one's showing you a little bit about what's going on when you reduce the fertility rate. You see 3 pounds of N on the lasers, it's 11.7. They go to 1.5 pounds and it's 13.1, over a foot difference in ball speed. And it's all the way through, all 4 of the grasses. If you take the fertility away, you gain ball speed. And people say, well, it's not going to look good or it's not going to be dense enough. Well, these grasses are very, very dense. And you don't have to worry about density and turf quality. Just pull the fertility off. You may do some verticutting or top dressing also. But the main thing is just don't fertilize them. Once you get them established, quit the fertility. You don't need it. Just showing you, this is at all. I'm going to try to take you all around the country so you understand that we're not just doing this in Texas. We're doing it all over the United States, and we're now doing it here in Vietnam and Thailand. But I'll take you through some of these slides. What I'm showing you here is that at 9 weeks, one of the questions is how fast will these things grow in? Well, in the States, we're saying 90 days. Here it might be faster because you've got this tropical climate where they're actually growing in quicker. But this is at 9 weeks, and what you're seeing is these are the 2 new ones. These are the ones y'all don't have yet here in Southeast Asia, laser and prism. And the big difference here is that the prism filled in 9 weeks, it's filled in. So what we're looking for, when we start to hear about problems or issues that people have, we want it to grow in as fast as Bermuda. Okay, well, we'll give it to you. The prism's a new one that's going to grow in just as fast as your Bermudas will. And I think you'll see some of the benefits here in a little while. But that's what we're trying to do. And this is at Auburn University. That's in Alabama. So a lot of different scenarios I'm going to show you. This is the PGA of America. They moved their facilities from Florida to Texas, to Dallas, Texas. And this is all the teaching pros. They have thousands and thousands of people are going to be coming through this facility. And these are all plots of new Zoysias. Some of them are ours, some of them are the University of Texas A&M University, a few from Georgia are all in these test plots. And the PGA of America is using them, maintaining them, and going to give us data back on how they're doing for those guys. This was a group that came in from Spain to see the Zoysias for greens. And this is a laser Zoysia root system. They're very extensive root systems, a lot of rhizomes. People ask about ball recovery. That's a big problem. They're asking about, divot recovery. Well, those are no problems that we see. We think they're repairing just as quick as the Bermudas, and then in some cases, I guess you have paspalum here. But no issues, and particularly ball marks. There's no ball marks on Zoysia grass greens. They can't hardly make a ball mark unless they be wet. This is a group out of Mexico that came up to see Zoysia grass greens. So we took them to the PGA of America to see it. These greens are going to be, Zoysia greens are going to be going in a place called Diamante in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. And this of course, is being designed by the Tiger Woods group. So we're starting to get a lot of interest from different groups and different architects using Zoysia for greens. Another one, TPC Southwind. Now this is the PGA tour. This is not PGA of America, 2 different groups. And this is at TPC Southwind. They're looking at changing their greens to Zoysia grass, and they have PGA events here. They actually, there are tournaments played here. So not only are we getting the greens, we just renovated all their fairways to Xeon Zoysia. This one's really interesting because I know there's some work been done on Zoysia in California, and most of the experts say that Zoysia won't work in California. It just wouldn't work. It's not native. It won't work. Well, we've been working on 5 or 6, 7 years now in California trying to make sure that the varieties we're providing work. Okay, so we have them at a lot of different sites. This site is in Northern California. It's supposed to be too cold. It's supposed to be too cloudy. It's supposed to be all these things where Zoysia is not going to work. And there's M85, the Primo, and it's doing spectacular there. Okay, so I get perturbed sometimes at some of these researchers and some of the PhDs and the books that are written. Well, Zoysia, there hadn't been a new book on Zoysia in 35 years, 40 years. So a lot of the information you might hear from a university or a researcher, they may not know what they're talking about because they haven't seen these new varieties. So we just say, bullshit. Mike, we say bullshit, it'll work. Okay. This is an interesting slide because we're talking about water use. Now, most of you are in the tropics, but I'm guessing North Vietnam, some of the northern Asian countries, China, they're still using cool season grasses. I just threw this one in because this is California. The irrigation went out for 2 weeks on this site. That's tall fescue. The fescue completely gone and burned up, and Zoysia didn't bother it at all. So, we get more and more of these testimonials all over the country, all over the world, where Zoysia is working, where people told us it wouldn't work. This is our first set of laser greens going in Houston, Texas. Now, Houston, Texas, I don't know how many have been to Houston? How many? Very humid, very hot, like here. So in Texas, this would be our site to be the most similar to what you guys deal with. 80% humidity, 100% humidity, 70-inch rainfall a year. Again, Zoysia may not work. Bullshit. It'll work, right? So this is our first set of greens. We've been very successful with them. The course is going to open in December. We're waiting to see what the reaction is. This will be our first set of laser greens in Texas. Shifting to Prism, the other one that you don't have here yet. This is a company called Bisod. They're our licensed growers in the Carolinas. And this is at a course in Knoxville, Tennessee. And the Prism's doing spectacular. We did one green there 2 years ago. Ken Mangum's in that picture. Ken's right over here. He might mention something about it later. Ken works with us a lot, particularly on golf course greens. And again, a lot of skepticism is whether they would grow and work in this climate, and they're doing spectacular. Actually, they're doing better than we thought they would do. This is Prism again. Now we've moved to Florida, okay? So we went from Texas to the Carolinas, and now we're in Florida. This is a test green that went in southern Florida. It went in the fall, really late, and actually that's Xeon Zoysia around the sides. And what you're going to see throughout this presentation is that when these Zoysias are mowed really tight, they hold their color. In Florida, Texas, even in the Atlanta area where Ken's from, some of these grasses have held their color all through the winter. So no overseeding, no dye of any kind, and they're holding their color through the winter. So what that relates to is no blankets, no overseeding, none of those things. When I watched your presentation, Andrew, earlier, one of the things that I saw there is that there are a lot of, there are inputs. They may not be you're working on a lot of things, but you still have inputs there that you're dealing with, and we're trying to take those away as much as we can with grass varieties. Who thought that, grass may be the thing that actually does do this sustainability, that really makes it work, new varieties of grass, and that's what we're working on, okay? This is Primo, and I'm sorry the picture's not showing up, or maybe the next one. That's in Atlanta, Georgia. The Primo's green. That's Tifway Bermuda in the fairways. They're totally dormant. And because we're mowing these things tight, they're holding their color much longer. I don't know if this thing went dormant or not. Do you know, Ken? I think this thing stayed green all winter. Yes, it did? Okay. So in Atlanta, which we can get degrees, close to 0 Fahrenheit in Atlanta. And so what we're seeing is these grasses are really holding up and holding their color. Because I said no overseeding and none of those things, this is a study. This is Dr. Brian Schwartz at the University of Georgia, and he wanted to see if you could overseed. So the grass on the right's not overseeded. On the left, right behind Brian, is overseeded, and it took it. I was surprised that it did. They did some verticutting. They opened it up a little bit, and I think that's Poatriv that they used. But they could overseed it, and that's right behind him. The lighter color That's Bermuda grass. So, University of Georgia is known for their tiffs. All the Bermuda grasses that you know that have tiff in front of them, that's from the University of Georgia. So Brian and Dr. Wayne Hanna have been doing Bermuda grass forever, but this is now a Zoysia breeding program. We're working with them at the University of Georgia, and that was just his overseeding work. Hey, Brad, you're in here. This is Orlando, Florida. Just again, a bunch of test plots of our different Zoysias going up against Diamond Zoysia. That's the original Zoysia that came out 20, 30 years ago from Dr. Milt Engelke's program. And all these are our new ones up against Diamonds. So we're working all over the country, all over the world on making sure these things will work for you, and not just because we said they will. You know, we're actually getting practical experience at looking at these things. This is Sports Turf Solutions in Thailand. We just sent these grasses over here about 6 or 8 months ago. And so this is in Thailand. This is the grow-in Thailand. Primo's a grass they already had, but there's Laser. So Laser's going to be a little finer texture than Primo. It's going to be a different green. You can see the color there is very, very good. That's the one that had the fastest ball speed. So a lot of people are very, very interested in Laser because of the ball speed. But I do believe you can get enough speed, 11, 12 out of all of them. But Laser, we've had it as much as 15, the ball roll. I mean, just rolling off the green. And why Zoysia for greens? It's the grass species that's native to Southeast Asia. It's perfect for your climatic conditions. A big issue is shade. I don't know, not out here because there's no trees, but very, very shade tolerant. Salt tolerance is good. I'll show you that in a little bit. Wear tolerance is good. Disease, insects, weeds, and no grain. I've seen some publications where people are talking about grain in Zoysia, and I really don't know where that's coming from because in our work, we're not seeing any grain. It's just a really, really true ball roll. And then minimum ball marks. We've got, our oldest course is 8 years old. It's a public course. They have 200 rounds a day, 40, 50,000 rounds a year, and there's no ball marks out there. You can go and visit. I visited about once or twice a year, and by the way, the maintenance staff, Andrew, four people. 4. So, and they're keeping the greens looking pretty good, okay? I'm picking on you because you came right before me, so I hope you don't mind. All right. The immediate future, we have a new grass here at STS is starting to produce, and it's called Stadium. And people ask me, why would you come out with a grass that looks similar to Zeon? Because Zeon's been very, very successful for our company. And my answer is, that's what I do. I do research on these things. I try to develop new varieties that are better. And Zeon's the standard, there's no doubt about it. And out of our company, Zeon's our #1 grass by far. It has been forever. It's been very, very successful here in the area. But, we're trying to improve. And Stadium Zoysia is what we believe is an improvement. We don't know that for sure here in Asia because it's brand spanking new, right? It hadn't been on any projects yet, even any test sites other than the farm. In Singapore, okay, so it's in Singapore being worked at for the sports hub, the stadium there, not golf, but at the stadium, right? Yeah, okay. So Stadium's going to be a little finer texture. It's going to be darker green. One of the things that we don't want, Zeon's a lighter green, and so people are trying to fertilize, right? To green it up, we don't want fertilizer. We don't need it. So we decided to try to find one that had more color, and this one has the best color in our entire program. So you'll see it in a little bit. We're working all over. I don't know how many desert climates are around here. Not much around here, but I'm guessing some areas of Asia have desert climates. This is in Scottsdale, Arizona. They told us it wouldn't work. We got some cooperators there, and this is a Desert Highlands. I don't know how many of you know that course, but it's Desert Highlands. And they're going to be converting to Stadium Zoysia next year. From all indications, we're putting in 50 acres of production down the road from the golf course with an outfit called West Coast Turf. And One of the reasons they're looking at it in Scottsdale and California and Nevada is water. Nevada's been told that all the golf courses in Arizona have to reduce their water by 30 to 40% by next year. All right. And most of the courses there, for those of you know, they're overseeded. It's a big tourist area. People come in the winter, and so they believe everything has to be green, right? So we're trying to get them to go to Zoysia to reduce the water. No overseeding. If you want a color, if you need some color for we're probably going to go semi-dormant 6 weeks out of the year. That's it. Dye it, right? If it's dye, whatever the new term is, but for 6 weeks, just spray something on it to give it color. The rest of the year, we're going to be green. And one of the things about Zoysia that's different than Bermuda or Paspalum, when it goes dormant, it doesn't lose its base. It's very dense. It doesn't lose the playability. You don't need to overseed to get that. So we believe that in Scottsdale area for sure in the next 2 to 3 years, we've probably got 5 or 6, 7 projects going in there. Right now we're shipping it from Texas there. That's too expensive. So we've got a grower now in the Scottsdale area. This is more stuff just being done at Scottsdale. Look at that the slide here. That color is just tremendous. And that's natural color. That's not high fertility. There's the grow in and harvesting of sprigs. And the color's just really, really, really good. God, Ken, you made a lot of these slides. This is Ken Mangum again at a home in Scottsdale. We want to make sure that we're working on the landscape trade, and it's doing great. Again, some of the experts would have told us, Zoysia won't work here. Well, again, it will. Just to give you an idea of color compared to Paspalum, we're a little finer texture in this. These were laid the same day. The sod came from the same farm. And so side by side, that's the stadium on the left with the much darker green, much finer texture. That's your newest Paspalum on the right. Okay, came from the same production, same everything. This is interesting because this is fall color, and we didn't know, because this grass is fairly new. We didn't know how good it would be, but on your left there, that's some of our test Zoysias on the left slide, on the right-hand side, and then that's stadium on the left. And that color, I couldn't believe the color on this picture. On the other slide, that S stands for stadium, Z stands for Zeon. So again, when we start looking at fall color, spring green up, we think we've made a big improvement on color in general, fall color and spring color in particular. It's just been amazing to us. When you have these grasses in plots, it's quite different than when you put them in a production field. And when we get them into bigger areas, then we start to realize how good or bad they might be. So stadium's just been outstanding as we've gone through. I think this is 2 winters now that we've gone through with it. Cuts like a dream. One of the problems you have when you got a new variety, will it harvest, where you have a good sod block? Can you make sprigs from it? And everything we've seen in stadium has just been outstanding as far as sod production, as far as harvesting, as far as sprig production. It's been great. Those trucks in the background, they're headed to Arizona. We do reefer trucks when we're going a long ways. It's over 1,000 miles, so everything's put in reefers. Now just showing sod strength. On the left, they were trying to pull a block apart, and on the right, it's just showing stadium Zoysia. That's Dr. Kun Lee standing there with me. He's from China. We had a lot of interest in China over the last 2 or 3 years until COVID hit. Now we don't know where we're going to end up and working in China. I just put this in because it's pretty. That's stadium Zoysia on the left and the right, and laser Zoysia in the middle. This is just a landscape project on a lake in Austin, Texas. That's only 3 weeks old. I was surprised when the guy told me how old it was, but now you can see the colors. And I mean, laser has great color, but when you put it beside stadium, big difference. Talking about salts, I know one of y'all's issues here why you use a lot of paspalum is because of salt. So we did a study with Dr. Marla Benzel. She's a PhD from Texas A&M University, and she ran this study, and at the end of the study, it showed that M66, which is Stadium Zoysia, was on top. I mean, it was the best as far as, and let me go into that a little bit. Paspalum, the salts go to the roots, and you have to flush it. Zoysia, the salts go to the leaf. So if you want to, you can haul the salts off. The salts are in the leaves. You mow, catch the clippings, and you can haul the salts away. So it's quite different in how they react to salts. You don't have to flush the Zoysias. You can just haul your clippings away. On greens, you're going to do it anyway. Fairways, it might be a little more difficult, but if you got a big salt issue, you can haul the salts away right in the leaves of the grass. So it's quite different in how it works. You can see all the different grasses there. M66, M85 is primo. Did very, very well. L1F, which is Trinity, Xeon is there, Zorro's there. You have Zorro, Andrew? Yeah. Yeah, so they're all there, and there's the paspalum on the bottom. We didn't name it because we didn't want to say which paspalum it is, but we were every bit as good as the paspalum with the M66 and M85, which is Stadium and Primo. This is another study we did at the University of Tennessee. For those of you that don't know, University of Tennessee is maybe the research facility in the States for sports. Their people handle all the NFL stuff, all the baseball stuff. The Dr. John Sorokin there is the guy that's going to run the World Cup when it comes to the States, Mexico, Canada. I mean, really, really high-end guys there that working on sports fields, all right? So we want to see how Stadium did in sports. So we had Stadium, Xeon, another Zoysia, and then 419 Tifway. And they were put in this trial. And you can see the fertility rates and that kind of stuff on there. I won't read all of it for you. But this is the plots going. The dark plots are Stadium. Let's see what it says. All right, so they're running traffic simulation. 4 games a week, 8 games a week, and I think I have there we go. All right, so the Stadium is up there, the 419 Tifway is kind of the standard. If you're in the U.S., most of the ball fields in the U.S. are 419 Tifway. And the Stadium hung right in there at 4 games, 12 games, 20 games, 28 games. Xeon's there, it's good, and we have Xeon on several stadiums here in the area. And it's darn good, but Stadium really showed up in this study. So we have real high hopes for Stadium in high-end sports. We have it real high-end golf. We believe it's going to do both, and hopefully we can get more sports fields going because we think we're a big plus in sports over Bermuda grass, particularly in covered stadiums. In stadiums that have the big overhangs or completely covered stadiums. We know the Zoysia is going to do much better because of the shade tolerance. We just haven't proved it yet. Okay. Are we working on? Will Stadium go in Singapore Sports Hub? Yeah. Yeah, that's going to happen pretty soon. They have Xeon now, and it's been working very good for them. But we're going to get a Stadium field in there fairly soon. And that's it. That is the Singapore. I put that in there because that'll be our first big stadium here in the area, and I don't know why I have that one in there, but that's a Stadium going to Brazil. We have 2 places outside the U.S. that have Stadium now that are testing. It's Brazil and Thailand and Vietnam. That's the only places we've let it go so far. And the reason for Brazil is we worked down there a long time. We did the Olympic golf course there in Xeon 5 or 6 years ago. These are our growers in Brazil, so we've allowed them to have it, and then STS here in Thailand and Vietnam. That's characteristics of Stadium: fine texture, dark green color, shade tolerance, salt tolerance, wear, disease, insects, weed resistance, good rhizome system, sod strength. So those are the improvements that we think we've made over our own grass, Xeon. beyond. This is where it gets good. All right. So we have our own research and development at Blade Runner. We do a lot of work ourselves. Lots of plots, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of plots that we have on at our farm, and we have these same plots at the University of Georgia in Tifton. Okay, so we're watching all this material in Texas. We're watching it in Georgia. And we go through all these thousands of plots and pick varieties that we think we're going to work. So we go, let's say we have 1,000 plots. We'll whittle it down to maybe 100, and then we'll go to 10. And from that 10, we hope to get 1 or 2. And this process takes 10 to 15 years. It's not a quick process. So we're working a long, long time on getting these things developed. But from this research, I heard your talk. I've heard the other talks. And there's a lot of money being spent on new technology, on all the different things that everyone's talked about over the last 2 days. But the most basic thing we have in golf is the grass we play on, right? And so my thought is, what if we could take away the fertilizer? What if we could take away the mowing? What if we could take away some of the chemical use? What if we could do all these things and do it with a grass variety? I know it might be a little bit controversial that we think we can do this, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Mike asked me to show you the newest stuff, so that's what we're going to do. This is the University of Georgia. They are our partner in Zoysia grass research. We do a lot of work with these guys. So when people ask us, a private company, you don't have any PhDs on staff, you don't have all this research, you don't have all these publications. So no, we don't. But we have practical experience, and we work with these grasses 10, 15 years to make sure they work. At a university system, sometimes they're looking at plots, and they have students out there that are collecting the data. What does that student know? I'm not against that program and doing it, but it's a big difference between a student doing data on plots and professionals that are taking care of it and working with it every single day for years and years and years. So I enjoy working with the university systems on our products, but I also really enjoy working with the industry people, whether it be golf courses, sports, grass farmers that we deal with. So we do a lot of work with the university. We do a lot of work with the people that have the practical experience. And this is a mowing study, and we came up with this. We said, what's the biggest cost in golf? And it may be labor, it may be water, depending on where you are, but mowing has to be a big part of that, right? The machinery it takes, all the different things that goes on, all the labor, all the maintenance, all those things that go into taking care of these grasses and making them perform. We said, let's take all that away, or as much of it as we can. All right? And so this is where we started with this program, and this work was done at the University of Georgia with different varieties that I'm going to tell you about in a little while. But it was the concept that we were looking at, trying to get grass varieties that grew sideways, but the leaves didn't grow. Okay? So we don't have to mow them. We don't have to do all those things. No, maybe we don't want the density to be as thick. We were trying to find material that worked with people that have a $2 million budget or people that have a $400,000 budget. And most of the people we deal with are the high end, but we're very, very, we understand that the public courses have to have this too. Most of the public courses I play on, I don't want to ever go back because the grass is no good, right? I'm a grass guy. I don't look at all the other stuff. But when the grass is no good, I'm done. All right. So we understand all those things. So we're trying to find varieties that'll work in all the different situations that people can put them in, and that's where this study started. And we used a grass called Zenith Zoysia. That's a japonica. For those of you who know, there's a lot of different families in the Zoysia, a lot of different kids in the Zoysia family, and Zenith is a japonica. Zeon's a Matrella, that's ours. The two TZs, those were the University of Georgia that we put into this study, and they're the two that we wanted to see that we wanted to improve on turf quality, but also take away the mowing. And let's see what happens. So this is at 4 weeks, no mowing. And so the Japonica and Xeon, you can see the height, they're maybe 2 or 3 inches tall. The other 2 grasses, they haven't touched them with a mower. Okay, so that's 4 weeks with no mowing. And you know, we really started to see that we may have some of these varieties that would meet what we're trying to do, take away the mowing as much as possible. This one's out of context. I saw it was out of whack. But what this does is shows you the scalped areas are the Xeon and the Zenith. The green areas are where we didn't have to mow, right? So we're taking scalping out. When you don't have these things mowing, not growing tall, then scalping's not going to be an issue. And I promise you, it's not going to be an issue with these grasses. So we're starting to see benefits that we didn't realize we might see when we first started working on this program. And here's clipping yields. With Zenith being the Japonica, we knew it would grow the fastest, right? So at 100%, when you look at it, Xeon's what, at 60%? One of the others is at 40, and then we've got the one at 20% less. So 4 times less mowing when you start looking at that? So the information started coming in that we really had something here, that we had grass varieties that would perform and be high quality, but didn't take the mowing. And this is just different times of the year, and we kept seeing it all year long, where the 2 varieties, I'm going to call them low riders, all right? So you'll see in a minute. We call our grasses, the ones we're developing, low riders. We don't have a name yet for them, but the low riders, the 2 low riders, continually to show throughout the year less mowing, less clipping. When they're doing it by clipping yields, but in just different times of the year again. And at the end of the year, this is what it ended up being. The average was the Zenith at 100%, Xeon 80, maybe 80-something. The 2 low riders, again, showed up, with the TZ5320 being the best. But we were really reducing the amount of mowing. So what happened is, I have a large collection of my own grasses besides our program with the University of Georgia. So we went back to our own collection and started looking for these, varieties that didn't grow tall, low riders. And this is a picture at our farm. That's Xeon in the background, and that's probably at a maybe 2-week deal. And remember that name L1FS, and we've got another one that we'll be talking about, that they just don't grow. I'm going to show you some slides in a little while here that'll attest to that. But we're really starting to whittle it down to varieties that we believe will give you all the quality you want, all the playability you want, all the characteristics that you want, low fertility, low amounts of water, good shade tolerance, good salt tolerance, all those things, but with grasses that don't need the mowing. That's just a close-up. Again, the Xeon in the background, L1FS in the foreground. These are our cooperators here. This is Brad and Ning Burgess. They come to Texas all the time to work with us on the work that we're trying to do. We give them our ideas and our thoughts. They say, yeah, this might work in our part of the world. And then we try to figure out when we can get the material over to them. That's how we start. It starts from one seed put into a pot, and then that 1-gallon pot is planted in the ground. And from that, about 10 years later, we might decide it looks good, okay? So it takes a long, long time to develop these things. And this is Brad and Ning a few years ago helping us pick varieties. This is a post that Sports Turf Solution did not long ago. BRF Zoysia lowrider varieties are doing well in our trials at our research facility. Stay tuned. Come and visit us to see what's in the turfgrass pipeline. And it says we will replicate these trials in Vietnam in the next week. Well, they're here. Those of you that will go to the farm tomorrow, you'll see them. They're not grown in completely, but they're here. If you want to really get involved and interested in what these grasses are doing, you can go to Thailand, and they're all grown in Thailand. So they have a really nice facility in Thailand. They've got a great facility here that you'll see tomorrow, and you'll see these grasses. They're just not quite grown in yet. There they are. This is in what do you call it? What's the area? Lam Shabang. So Lam Shabang, Thailand is where these tests are, south of Bangkok. And these aren't very old, huh? 6 months? 10 months? 10 months old. And all the different lowriders are in here. And I was here a month ago to see them. I didn't know for sure if we wanted to talk about them at this show until we saw they were working, you know. So we came and looked at it. Oh, yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. So this is an interesting slide. I'm not going to talk down on any grass, but this was an interesting slide because in their plots, they're treating them all exactly the same, okay? So all of these varieties will work for greens. All of the ones you see in these pictures will work for greens. The one we're going to talk about next is called BRG2, and that thing's looking tremendous here. It'll be greens, it'll be fairways, it'll be tee boxes. You can go tee to green with this grass, and we're super high on it. So remember that experimental name, BRG2. I think we're actually going to blow them up in the next few weeks to get more material and start to look at whether we might want to release one in the next year or two here in the area. But I wanted to show you the newest stuff. So the only thing with the Tiff Eagle, they didn't put any fungicides down, and it's got some disease. So we just, everywhere we see, it's practical experience now. It's not the research. We do have research at University of Tennessee. We have it at A&M. We have it at University of Georgia. But this is just practical stuff. So, but you can see in these pictures, the guy in the red, he's on laser. So BRG2 laser looked really, really good in Thailand about a month ago. And 1010, it's on there. Okay. That was our group that we came down to see the plots. This is pretty amazing. When I started trying to develop these grasses for the low mowing, no mowing, low riders, whatever you want to call them, we didn't know if we took them. See, my climate is fairly dry. South of San Antonio, I'm fairly dry. We don't get much rainfall, 15-inch rainfall a year. Humidity's 30 or 40%. So we really didn't know if they would react different when we moved them to the tropics. When we moved them to Bangkok, Thailand, would that low rider effect be gone? Would they grow faster? Would they do the things that we were trying to develop? But would they change when they came here? Well, they haven't. At least so far, in 10 months, they haven't. Where Brad is standing on the left, that hadn't been mowed in 3 weeks, all right? And it looked perfection. I mean, it just, if you put a mower on it to mow it at tee height or fairway height, you wouldn't take any clippings at 3 weeks. On the right, even more surprised me, that's been since it was planted. It's never been mowed, okay? So I don't know what it was, an inch tall, maybe, in 10 months. So we're seeing the same effect here that we saw in Texas, that we saw in Georgia, that these grasses really will grow in sideways. They'll grow, they'll recover from injury, but they're not shooting a leaf up. And so I tell people, I've given this talk once before to just a small group because these are so new. And I told them I didn't think they were going to have to mow fairways but once every 10 days to 2 weeks. And they just laughed, okay? Because in Florida, they're mowing fairways 4 times a week, 5 times a week, you know. And we're saying we're gonna take you down to once a week, or once every 10 days, or once every 2 weeks. And by the way, in the rough, you're gonna mow it once a year, maybe twice a year, all right? Bunker faces. You're not going to have all this, fly mows going and all that kind of stuff. We're trying to take all that out by just the varieties we're using, the grass varieties we're using. And we believe we're there, or we wouldn't be talking about it today. And that we believe that in the next year or 2 years, you'll see this coming out into the marketplace. And if they perform like they have been performing, we've got something really special here. Not because it's ours, I just think it is. BRG2 is the other one. L1FS is more of a fairway type, T-type, fairway type. BRG2 could be tees, fairways, and particularly greens, okay? Not a lot of information out again, but it's as fine a texture as the laser is, as the Primo is, as the Prism is. And again, it's a low rider. Now on your greens, I'm sure you're gonna be mowing like you normally would because you want the speeds, right? But when you start talking tee boxes, fairways, again, you're not gonna mow them once every 10 days, once every 2 weeks, maybe to clean them up, that's all. They're not gonna be tall enough where you really need to mow them. It may just be that you want it to look, present it a little bit nicer than what it is. But the L1FS, BRG2 could be available here in the next year or two. I guess I'm saying it correctly. Yeah. We're pushing it hard in the States. We're going to have our first production going out next year. We're a little ahead of Brad, although Brad can grow it much faster than we can with the weather here. So he may catch us with the amount of acreage we have. L1FS, BRG2, those are the new ones that we think are going to make a huge impact on the industry, and particularly in the tropics where you're getting all this rain. And hell, you miss a mowing on this for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days. It's not going to matter. You're not going to have any clippings. You're not going to have any buildup of thatch. It's just how good these grasses look to be. And I've been looking at Zoysia for 50 years. I think this is it. These are where we're headed. We have even some more that we're looking at in our program down the road, but L1FS, BRG2, those will be the two that you'll be seeing in the near future. Now that's just a close-up of the BRG2. To show you, this is the Vietnam site. Now, I haven't seen the site. Now, this was 3 weeks ago, maybe, and Brad's telling me it's moving right along. Yeah, so these plots, you remember this slide because this is what they were 3 or 4 weeks ago, and now he's telling me they're filling in pretty quick. So you'll see these tomorrow, all of you that want to come to the farm. This is in 5 minutes down the road. We'll be going to tomorrow. Just showing you some more pictures. In the middle is the grasses that we already produced, the low riders in the front. Just another picture. The turf quality is just tremendous. They don't need to be mowed. So why use a low rider? And I'm just going to read these because I forgot all I said. It saves labor, less people required to produce great playing conditions, less bother to golfers since the fairways, tees, and approaches can be cut only 1 time a week. We're going to say 1 time a week right now, but we believe it's even less, particularly on courses that don't over-fertilize. If you're not fertilizing, you're not going to have to mow them much, okay? The rough can be mowed monthly, maybe even less. Less fuel consumption and wear and tear on your mowing equipment. You can use baskets on the mowers to pick up debris, eliminating blowing. Much less fertility and water required. Less hand labor mowing bunker faces, edging. Less wear from the mowers turning on the turf as well. Less scalping. Significant reduction in staffing for the golf course while producing outstanding playing conditions. That's where we're trying to go, and we think we're not there yet because we don't have the production, but we're really, really close. And this is my last slide. I went through it quick, right? Save you some time. On the left, tee to green. We believe a lot of these varieties are going to go tee to green. That's really unusual in warm season grasses. And over on the right, why mow? I think that's a biggie. You're not going to have to mow these things near as much. There's so much expense in the mowing of a golf course. Hopefully we can reduce that by 50% and even more. And that's the end. Thank you very much.